Y'all, so I'm just gonna be honest with you today. I hope you're doing well, first and foremost. I want to say that, but I'm having I'm having one of those mornings where I really should be fully awake by now, and I'm not for some reason, and I actually think it may be because of the Benadryl I took. Normally they're not affecting me very much, but they're today I suspect that may be the problem, the issue, but I have to take it. I have to take it to try and deal with all this itching. I don't know if you guys can see all of, yeah, it's not fun. So please be careful around poison ivy, poison oak, all those terribly itchy plants out there. Just please take precautions and don't be like me and think that you can, be semi-cautious and then you're good. So lessons learned, but I'm battling the relaxing feeling of the Benadryl this morning. I'm trying to offset it with my coffee, and so we'll see what ends, what wins in the end. See, there we go. So I hope that you're able to hang with me to enjoy the message that I actually enjoyed putting together for you all. So today we're going to be going back into the book by Joseph Campbell, The Hero with 1,000 Faces. We're going to be diving into the second chapter, which is called Initiation. The first chapter was all about the departure stage of the hero's journey, and then this stage begins with the road of trials. And I went through this entire section, this first part of the initiation stage, the road of trials, and I just highlighted the main points, and they're hopefully going to validate your experiences, and it's my desire that it just brings you another level of understanding and validation for everything you've been through, and just giving you hopefully comfort that there is purpose in the things that we experience, and that there's a reason to look forward to the future, because you can recognize where you've been, and you can recognize that you're growing, and also you can recognize that you actually have a desire to grow, right? And we're going to talk about that today, which is total opposite, right? Polar opposite of a narcissistic individual who runs from growth, who runs from self-reflection, right? Always on the run. So we're going to talk about these things today. And so again, I just encourage you to apply your own lens to everything that I share with you. And of course, you can just consider the things that resonate with you and leave the rest. I'm certainly never trying to assert anything as ultimate truth. That's for you to discern and to decide for yourself. So I hope you guys are doing great today. I hope you're doing really good this morning. I don't know what time of day it's going to be when you're watching this, but I hope it's a good day for you so far. So, all right, let's dive in here. The road of trials. The road of trials. So this title in itself is indicative that there's purpose. There's purpose to this adventure. Doesn't always feel like an adventure, right? But that's a nice way to sugarcoat the hardships and challenges that we go through, right? It's a road of trials, and so it's good to consider the fact that the purpose of a road is to get you somewhere, right? From A to B. And so that's in itself, when you consider this concept of a road, being on a road, a path, a journey, that in itself is encouraging that there is a destination, right? It may not even be in this lifetime. It may be, once we leave this earthly experience. I don't know. But, I do think that there are possibly even multiple destinations along the way. Maybe there's a destination for us here, and then an ultimate destination for us in the afterlife, right? Who knows? That's for you to think on, right? So the theme is growth. The theme is growth. If there's trials, then that means there's decisions to be made, there's choices to consider, and so yes, it's all about growth. And the thing is, narcissistic individuals pretend that they've got it all figured out, right? And because of that, there's no growth. They'll never grow if they think they're already there. That's it, right? They're basically going to stay stuck in this mindset for as long as they're unwilling to admit that there's even room for growth. So have you ever heard, there's different phrases like this, but the underlying message is that there's actually joy in the journey, that it's all about the climb. It's learning that is supposed to be fun and enjoyable. Yeah, sometimes it may trigger other emotions in us. We may get very angry, we may get depressed or anxious, or there's all these different emotions that we experience along the way. But when you finally wake up and you realize, hey, I'm getting somewhere now, at whatever point it is on your journey, you can recognize where you've been and where you are now, and you see the difference, and you can see that you have grown, which is proof that this road of trials is meant to be productive in that manner, to grow us, right? And so again, somebody who's staying stuck and resisting growth, they're never going to experience the joy, which feels like a paradox, right? Because you have these trials, right? And somehow yet you find joy on the path as you go through these things. And you really, like I said, to me, you really start to understand the joy part of it when you can see the growth happening, when you can actually identify it. And that right there, the joy of growing, that's something that somebody who's stuck in a particular old mindset, or like I have it all figured out mindset, I have nothing else to learn mindset, they're never going to experience that joy. And they're typically not happy individuals. They may front like they are or try to fake us off like they are, but they're truly not. And so it requires growth to experience this. It requires letting go of old paradigms that either no longer serve us, or either that we've proven wrong. One way or another, part of growing is letting go of old paradigms, right? So a narcissist is not humble enough to be taught. You have to have a certain level of humility to admit that you don't know it all. And you have to admit that you don't know it all in order to learn something and be taught. So I'm starting to realize the whole objective of this human experience is to experience the adventure of proving the truth to ourselves, right? It's kind of like, you may have heard the old saying, and I don't remember exactly how it goes, but it's like, a teacher may just tell you the answer, right? But a great teacher is going to point the way for you to find the answer for yourself. And so that creates the journey, right? And so it's good to have help along the way. In a lot of these stories, really almost all of them, there is a helper, at least one, if not many, that assists the hero on their journey. So it's good to have help, but again, it's like you're the one navigating the path. You have to be the one to walk the path yourself in order to really get it, and also in order to experience the joy of growing, right? So also a reoccurring theme in folklore, fairy tale, myth, all that is the discovery that separation is an illusion. So this is a really interesting concept too, right? So many stories are about unification, right? There's a marriage of sorts. There's a discovery of heritage, either, especially our spiritual DNA, right? Especially that heritage, the spiritual lineage, right? So now we're going to go ahead and dive into the book, and I'm going to read some of my favorite parts and pieces to you. Okay, so this is section 1 of chapter 2, Initiation, the Road of Trials. Once having traversed the threshold, the hero moves in a dream landscape of curiously fluid, ambiguous forms, where he must survive a succession of trials. So I just want to pause here and acknowledge that it's specifically describing fluid, ambiguous forms as making up the landscape that the hero must navigate. Well, if you apply that lens to our reality, our external reality out here, and what all we actually experience as we're navigating our life, that's totally descriptive of interacting with people who are constantly fluid and changing, and just changing out their masks, and you really don't know who they are. I mean, again, curiously fluid, ambiguous forms. Yes, exactly right. That's totally descriptive of going through the experience of engaging with Jekyll and Hyde type individuals. So it says where he must survive a succession of trials. Yep. This is a favorite phase of the myth adventure. And I'm thinking, huh? But then he explains, right? He says, it has produced a world literature of miraculous tests and ordeals. I love that he says miraculous. Yes. Because it certainly has felt that way at times, right? That we had help, divine assistance. The hero is covertly aided by the advice, amulets, and secret agents of the supernatural helper, whom he met before his entrance into this region. Or it may be that he here discovers for the first time that there is a benign power everywhere supporting him in his superhuman passage. Yes. This resonated with me for sure. I mean, just, there's only so much that we can do for ourselves. And also there's only so much that we can grasp intellectually as we're navigating this chaos out there. And then there's times, after you've gone through a difficult situation, you can reflect back and you're like, that truly was miraculous. There had to be some type of intervention from a higher power to help me out, and that just produces such gratefulness within you, and that in itself is very impactful, and changes you, right? It gives you such perspective. Suddenly, so much out there just doesn't even shake you or rattle you anymore, because number one, you've got help. The times it felt like you were alone, sometimes it's in hindsight that you realize you weren't alone. And so I just thought that was great. And then now he gets into some examples, and I'm not going to read this to you. Again, I just encourage you to get the book if you're interested, but it's really interesting. He starts talking about some different stories, different myths, and then he goes into what are called medicine men in different cultures, and how they're often seen as, well, how did he describe these people? It was really good. Let's see. It's like shaman and medicine men, and I can't find the terms he used. I didn't highlight that, but essentially he's talking about how they can sometimes just seem crazy. You know what I mean? Like just totally off their rocker. And it's like, here's the reason. We're gonna understand why. It says the medicine men therefore are simply making both visible and public the systems of symbolic fantasy that are present in the psyche of every adult member of their society. They are the leaders in this infantile game and the lightning conductors of common anxiety. They fight the demons so that others can hunt the prey and in general fight reality. I view this as, first of all, when he says fight reality, I don't take this to mean fight what's true, fight truth. I take this as fighting and dismantling all the false and incorrect paradigms that have constructed our subjective reality for so long. So like conditioning that we may have been operating from totally unconsciously, totally unknowingly from abusive people in our past, our parents, our siblings, just anybody of influence, our friends, a spouse, just a toxic environment of connections. And so I feel like when he says fighting reality, that's what he's referencing. You know, fighting the reality that doesn't serve us, fighting the reality that's a totally false, unproductive, unfruitful, destructive, subjective reality that constructs that fog that we talk about, that's just so difficult to navigate. So what he's talking about with these medicine men is, I like how he describes them as lightning conductors of common anxiety, because it's kind of like, I think I mentioned in one of my recent videos about how hypnotists will sometimes do something that's very unexpected, that sort of shocks you, and it just brings you into this particular state of awareness where you can be manipulated. They get your attention in a way that kind of triggers this primitive defense mechanism within you, like you're on high alert. It's like a life-saving innate feature within our psyche, and it's something that I've learned, apparently it can be hijacked for the purposes of manipulation, right? Just like a narcissistic person, a lot of times, you know, you hear people describe what they do to us, which is really psychological abuse. You hear it described as casting a spell, right, over our mind. And so what these healing people, medicine men or women, shamans with good intentions, they're kind of using that same tactic to break. It's like shattering this what's often referred to as a trauma bond. Basically, they're breaking the spell is what they're doing, and they're doing it with very exaggerated, you know, dances and performances and shocking sounds and screams and songs, and in other words, all these rituals and things that they engage in and that they just do to heal a person. And some of the examples are so out there, they're so extreme, they're shocking, sometimes they're dangerous, but it's meant to be shocking. Again, to break that spell, there has to be something to shatter that stronghold that is false and that is keeping us imprisoned in this web of lies, this false subjective reality that serves, I mentioned in one of my videos, as how the spirit of decay or the spirit of death has us trapped, right? It serves in that manner. That has to be shattered for progress, right? So yeah, it's really interesting to read the different tactics, and he kind of goes over some examples here too, of what these medicine men do, and it was very shocking to read. So anyway, he talks about in the vocabulary of the mystics, this is the second stage of the way, that of the purification of the self, when the senses are cleansed and humbled, and the energies and interests concentrated upon transcendental things. Okay? And then he expands and says, or in a vocabulary of more modern turn, this is the process of dissolving, transcending, or transmuting the infantile images of our personal past. I view these as paradigms, again, beliefs belief structures that have been built that are totally wrong, or meant to serve this controlling person and meant to destroy us, right? Then he gets into talking about dreams, and this is really interesting. He says, in our dreams, and I'm skipping a little bit here, we may see reflected not only the whole picture of our present case, but also the clue to what we must do to be saved. Wow. And it's kind of like, when you consider powerful dreams and how bizarre they can be, just like a medicine man, right? It's like the medicine men are acting out the same kind of scenarios that are just rich in symbolism. Our dreams are that way too. And sometimes if a dream is powerful enough, and I know this from experience, it can be the motivation that we need to evaluate our life and to change, right? They can be very powerful. And then I'm going to skip ahead a little bit in this section and share with you some important points from this story that is shared. All right, so he says the oldest recorded account of the passage through the gates of metamorphosis is the Sumerian myth of the goddess Inanna's descent to the nether world. Okay, I want you to keep in mind, in the forefront of your mind as we continue in this discussion, that she went willingly. Okay, she went willingly. From the great above, she set her mind toward the great below. Okay, so she descended. It talks about she abandoned heaven, abandoned earth, to the nether world. She descended. And so then it talks about approaching a temple, and she's met there by the chief gatekeeper, and she sounds so full of herself here. She says, "I am the queen of heaven, the place where the sun rises," she replied. And so they're like, okay, then why did you come here? Essentially, I'm putting in my own words, They're like, if you're really that, then why are you here? Which is interesting. So then it goes into talking about, in order to go through the gate, it says, Nettie was instructed to open to the Queen of Heaven the 7 gates, but to abide by the custom and remove at each portal a part of her clothing. So I view this as like one by one, the fig leaves being removed, right? Willingly, right? She's going willingly. So when she, upon her entering the first gate, the shugura, the crown of the plane of her head was removed. And then when she gets to the second gate, the rod of lapis lazuli was removed. And then the third gate, the stones of her neck were removed. The fourth gate, the stones of her breast were removed. The fifth gate, the gold ring of her hand was removed. The sixth gate, the breastplate of her breast was removed. And then the seventh gate, all the garments of ladyship of her body were removed. So then it says, naked, she was brought before the throne. She bowed low. The 7 judges of the netherworld, the Anunnaki, sat before the throne of Ereshkigal, and they fastened their eyes upon Inanna, the eyes of death. At their word, the word which tortures the spirit, the sick woman was turned into a corpse. The corpse was hung from a stake. So I want to pause here. She started out just totally adorned in all of these, beautiful jewels, and she was, very sure of herself, stating who she was and that she, was the queen. And I am the queen of heaven, the place where the sun rises. So in other words, her core, the center driving force of all of her motives in life, and motivations in life. It was herself, right? She had to be humbled. She had to be stripped of her fig leaves, and she knew it. She knew that there was a road of trials that she had to go on, right? And that road of trials is described as a descent. Okay. So, my notes say layers of ego death, yeah. So it says, Inanna and Ereshkigal, the two sisters, light and dark respectively, together represent, according to the antique manner of symbolization, one goddess in two aspects. And their confrontation epitomizes the whole sense of the difficult road of trials. The hero, whether god or goddess, man or woman, the figure in a myth, or the dreamer of a dream, discovers and assimilates his opposite, his own unsuspected self, either by swallowing it or by being swallowed. Here again, we have that theme of eating, right? Consuming. One by one, the resistances are broken. He must put aside his pride, his virtue, beauty, and life, and bow or submit to the absolutely intolerable. Then he finds that he and his opposite are not of differing species, but one flesh. Again, we have this theme of union, right? What used to seem like a polar opposite is no longer that. And so I'm just thinking of like the symbolism in that story, sealskin, soulskin, where you have the ego represented by the fisherman and the soul represented by the seal lady, and they marry and have a child, and then the child is representative of that union, right? The marriage between ego or the worldly self, which we have to operate in this physical reality, right? But there's a marriage between the worldly self and the spiritual self, or the soul. But first, there has to be an ego death. It's almost like the ego is what is cleansed. The soul, and this is where I'm certainly no expert, because you have spirit, you have soul, you have ego. And so I'm just going to leave that up to you to decipher and decide for yourself what part is considered the spark of the divine, but there's a part of us that has to be cleansed, and it's only cleansed and renewed after it dies, after there's a submission, a laying down of, right? So it says the ordeal is a deepening of the problem of the first threshold, and the question is still in balance. Can the ego put itself to death? For many-headed is the surrounding hydra, one head cut off, two more appear, unless the right caustic is applied to the mutilated stump. I'm thinking about the handless maiden, right? Yeah. The original departure into the land of trials represented only the beginning of the long and really perilous path of initiatory conquests and moments of illumination. Moments, yes. Those light bulb, aha moments. Dragons have now to be slain and surprising barriers passed again, again, and again. Meanwhile, there will be a multitude of preliminary victories, unretainable ecstasies, and momentary glimpses of the wonderful land. Yes. So let's take a look at that word, wonderful, describing the land, right? So wonder means marvelous or a miracle, and then you have full, which is full of. So it's a place, a land, a place that is full of miracles. I want to pair that with the verse in the Bible that says, with God, all things are possible. So I view this, this wonderful land that's described here as a place where we are united or reunited with God. Because with God, all things are possible. It's the land full of miracles. It's the recognition of your true heritage, right? So, and then I looked up the word trial, proving by examination or experiment, etc. Okay, so it's almost like we're proving our heritage to ourselves, right? The land that's truly our homeland, the land of miracles, full of miracles, which is only with God, right? That's where all things are possible. We're proving that to ourselves along this road of trials. Okay, so I thought that was kind of a neat lens. And so in conclusion, in the end, we're all humbled. Okay, the difference is a narcissistic person will be unmasked. Okay, they're not willingly going to go and take off their fig leaves like Anana in this story, right? That's not going to be a willing pursuit from a narcissistic person, right? Their falsehoods are going to be disrupted by the truth regardless. They're going to be all kinds of upset about it, right? So all of their web of lies, their false paradigms that they not only try to live by via their mask, but they also try to project onto us and get us to buy into it, right? They try to get us to accept it as truth, right? Just like Anana going through the gates where all these bits and pieces of her pride, of her being full of herself and thinking that she knows who she really is, all that is being deconstructed, dissembled, broken apart. And so, yes, so they're going to be mad. They're going to be very angry because they've lived their whole life running from the inevitable. And it's inevitable for all of us. The difference is that we go willingly. We want to be changed. It doesn't mean it's easy. Maybe there's parts where, you know, it doesn't feel like we want to really be a willing participant, but regardless, we're aided along the path, and we recognize that, and we're grateful for it. And that's the difference when you can get to a place where you're grateful for the lessons, because the lessons would not have happened without these hardships, right? Yes, so we want to be changed. It's the removal of the fig leaves. It's surrender. It's submission. And it's beautiful because we understand at some point along the journey that from death comes new life, comes even more creation. Creation is that force that just never stops, but it's purifying. And if there's something untrue, in the way, it's going to get taken apart. It's going to get destroyed, right? It's like this incredibly powerful force of creation is the same as truth. And it's like that whole double-edged sword, it's true. And so it's going to blast away anything that's false in the path, right? And it's only going to reinforce the good, right? Because it's said that God is love, and love is good. And so I think that it's fun to me to research these different Bible verses and to see how they work together to validate points. And so I just encourage you, if you have interest, to consider doing that, right? Cross-referencing. So I hope that you have been inspired by today's message. I hope that I got the wheels turning for you. I hope that you are encouraged, and I hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you again very soon.